So what I'm doing here is using an example, personal example, not that personal, but personal enough, that exemplifies the cognitive challenging that this chapter spends a good amount of time on. So, as you see here, this is the model for cognitive challenging. A is activating event, B is beliefs or thoughts about the event, C is the emotional or behavioral consequences of the event. And then that happens, right? And then we challenge it with D, E, and F. D is the disputing intervention. E is the effective philosophy, which really just boils down to new thoughts, and F is new feelings. So let's get started. So the event I'm using is from a few years ago. I've used this for a few years in my classes when I need an explanation or when I don't use student-generated examples. So at this time I was teaching at the main campus. Class met 3 times a week. This other professor was in the room before me. His class was 3 times a week. We both had very large classes, well over 100 students in each class, and he would run over every single day. So I think at the time my class started at 1 p.m. His ends at 12:50, and I like to have that 10 minutes to set up and get organized, and he would usually end late. And not to mention ending late, he would stay at the podium answering questions while I basically mean mugged him from the side. Um, so my thoughts when he would do that. This guy said with in my head with attitude and probably curse words. He's effing with me. He knows he's out of time, but he doesn't care. He's seeing how far he can push me, and he would often say sorry. And I considered those fake ass apologies because nothing ever changed. Like he ran over every single day. So, how was I feeling? The C, emotional and behavioral consequences. I was angry. I resented him. And I had an attitude with him. Like I was not friendly. He would say sorry and I wouldn't even reply. I would just stare at him. Or just walk over to the podium. Like he would say it as he walked by, like, sorry, and I would just ignore him and walk to the podium. And if I saw him outside of campus, which I don't spend a lot of time on campus as an adjunct, but if I was walking around campus and I saw him, I just ignored him, wouldn't pay any attention to him. So obviously these are unhealthy, or at least unpleasant, if not unhealthy, unpleasant thoughts and feelings. And so what we want to do here is we want to dispute them. We want to challenge them, right? So whenever we're challenging thoughts, we're looking for cognitive distortions, irrational beliefs, or unrealistic expectations. That's what we're looking for. So cognitive distortions we covered in this chapter. We didn't cover all of them. We covered ones particular to addiction, but a lot of them are very similar. They were originally developed by Aaron Beck for depression. So there's some common to depression, there's some common to anxiety, there's some common to addiction, and a lot of overlap with them. I'm also looking for irrational beliefs. Irrational beliefs are things that I hold to be true or to be expectations, I guess, which brings us to unrealistic expectations that are irrational or unrealistic. So I usually use the example, if I expect others to do unto me the way I would do unto them, then I would have an unrealistic expectation. Why is that an unrealistic expectation? Well, first, it's the golden rule. It's a beautiful thing, right? I should try to do unto others as I want them to do to me. But it's irrational and unrealistic because that's impossible. I am not 100% of the time going to be able to treat people the way I wanted to be treated. Also, people aren't me. So it's irrational for me to hold beliefs about how people should behave as if they were me, because they're not me. So that's the best example I can give of unrealistic expectations and irrational beliefs. And then I think one of, because, well, his name is escaping me while I'm recording. Great. So it's Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis. There it is. So Albert Ellis, one of his irrational beliefs he used a lot with people with anxiety or people with depression was that everyone must like me, right? That's an irrational belief. It doesn't matter how wonderful you are, there are people that won't like you. So that would be an irrational belief. And again, very similarly, an unrealistic expectation. So what do we want to do in D? We want to detect, is it possible that my thoughts are cognitive distortions, irrational beliefs, or unrealistic expectations? And then I want to debate. As I go through these, I'm going to look at, well, is it possible, right? Is it possible? And if it is possible, well, what is the evidence for the fact that this is a distortion or an irrational or unrealistic belief or expectation, or that it's legit? Like, am I thinking rationally here? So the first one, I didn't identify anything for. This guy. Like, I don't know how to challenge that thought. Like, that's more an attitude, right? So I kind of skip that one and I go to the second one. He's effing with me. Well, that is almost certainly personalizing. Like, that guy would have to hold a grudge against me and want to make me angry. That's what he would have to want to be doing in order for that to be true. Right? So there's a very, very good chance that's personalizing. He knows he's out of time but doesn't care. We didn't cover this, but sometimes that's called mind reading, where I think I know what is in the head of someone else, which I can't possibly know. I mean, we have empathy and things like that, and we can try to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, but in this case, this is very negative. So it's also likely mind reading. And then he's seeing how far he can push me. Again, personalizing, obviously. Like, he doesn't want to fight me, I'm assuming. I doubt two professors go into class thinking, let's have a fist fight. Like, that would be fun. So I don't think he's doing that, or seeing how far he can push me until I what? Like, when someone's trying to push you or seeing how far they can push you, it's until you explode, right? So probably irrational. And then his fake ass apologies. Maybe he's apologetic, but just doesn't change the behavior, which is a possibility, right? Like, some people apologize and they know what they're doing is inconsiderate, but they have a really tough time for whatever reason changing it. So if I buy into those, then I have new thoughts, right? This professor seems really into his topic, and his students would be a much more positive frame of that. He loses track of time, which is probably very true. He might be inconsiderate and less socially aware than I'd like. So that may be true. Like, he may be a less considerate person than others. People have different levels of consideration for one another. So maybe he's at the lower end of that. And then new feelings, I would be calmer, less angry, and maybe nicer. So hopefully that helped you guys understand how to do cognitive challenging.